Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. My name is Steve Smith and I'm your host. It's time again for another segment of Colin Campbell Chemicals' Keeper of the Greens. You're going to really enjoy this one. This is episode number 68. I'm extremely proud to bring to you Keeper of the Greens once again, which is brought to you by Colin Campbell Chemicals. Colin Campbell Chemicals is a 100% Australian owned and operated company that is a leading supplier of crop protection products for the needs of the turf and broader horticultural industries right across Australia. Not only are Colin Campbell Chemicals Australian owned and operated, in 2020 they celebrated 80 years of being in business since their inception by Colin Campbell Sr. back in 1940 in Alexandria, Sydney. Colin Campbell Chemicals has always had a focus on developing new technologies and bringing solutions to the turf industry. Their product range is a testament to their continued focus into their 82nd year of business as a wholly Australian owned and operated company, with some of those products being produced right here in Australia. If you want to know more about how Colin Campbell Chemicals can help protect your turf, then you need to go to their website at campbellchemicals.com.au or talk to Nadeem directly, whose details are on the website under the Contact Us page. And don't forget to tell them that the Golfing Greenkeeper sent you. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you once again. Look, I always say how much I love this segment. This is Keeper of the Greens, and I'm really excited. We're going to delve back down into the state of Victoria. We're going into the Sandbelt, to a place that you may not think is part of the Sandbelt. And I don't mean that in a not so good way. This is a really interesting conversation we're about to have, and you're part of it. So I welcome in Superintendent Nick Launer from Keysborough Golf Club in Victoria. G'day, Nick. How you doing, mate?
Good, Steve. Going well, mate. Yourself?
Mate, I am good. I'm excited to have you on because I did just say there that this is a golf club that you work at, that you're superintendent at, that doesn't always get associated with the names of the Sandbelt. I think in Melbourne it's probably viewed that way, but certainly outside it's not one that we often hear people talk about.
Yeah, I guess, in terms of talking about the Sandbelt clubs in a tier ranking, it sort of gets caught up with that sort of tier 2 golf clubs down here.
Sure.
But certainly, the history of the golf club, it's got similar the vibe, the feel of a traditional golf course. Just the ones that are normally get all the spotlight. They get the spotlight for a reason, but the tier 2 golf clubs are not far behind them.
And you talk about the vibe. I thought you were going to go down the path of the castle then. A great Australian movie.
Oh yeah, it's a vibe. But it's also it down at Keysborough. It's a club. There's a feel here of just pure enjoyment, which has been exciting to be part of.
That's awesome.
The supporting nature of the club, and they're out there to play golf and enjoy each other's company, and I just play a small part in that, which is fantastic.
No, mate, and we're gonna open all that up. We're gonna crack that egg, and we're gonna get right into that as we move through the conversation. But mate, as we know, I think you're a listener to the podcast, so we're going to start off with Steve's Super 7 questions. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Ready to go.
Ready to go. Righto. Number 1: sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Okay, very good. The sunrises in the Sandbelt, they look pretty special. Some of the photos I've seen from you guys down there, the superintendents and parts of your team members that post, it looks pretty special.
Yeah, it is. It is, especially some of the cooler mornings we've been having. We've had the sun come out. That sort of time of the day where it's a bit quiet and the surroundings we've got, it's always good. But sunset's good too, on a end of a week.
Yes.
The sun's going down and you're starting to slow down as well. That can be equally as good.
Absolutely, absolutely. Righto, mate. Number 2. Now, I've got to reiterate because I want you guys as interviewees to remember a little bit that these are your personal views and they don't reflect the club in any way for these 7 questions. So just keep that in mind when you're answering them. I like to get your own view. So I understand sometimes it may not be in stride with the clubs you work for, and we're not trying to buck that trend or their rules, but these are just your thoughts. So number 2, dogs or no dogs allowed on the golf course?
Oh, no dogs.
No dogs. Okay. Number 3, stripes or no stripes on fairways. How do you like to see a course presented, mate?
Well, this is interesting because I've changed back to stripes.
Oh, at Keysborough.
I've made the turn around, and we've gone back 20 years, I reckon.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, and I'm going to crack this one open right now because I've seen some of the older photos of some of the courses, and I think I saw one of Metro, and I'm talking back in the 90s potentially down there where it was all striped up fairways. But you hear the sort of Sandbelt people who admire the Sandbelt courses, whether it's superintendents or golfers that love it or architects, they're all saying that it should just be black and white, if you like, or no stripes. But I'm intrigued that you've gone to stripes there at Keysborough.
Yeah, look, there's probably a couple of reasons for it, and that's not to say that it's the right or wrong way. And of course,
Agreed.
The beauty of the Sandbelt offers that natural contrast anyway, with the sandy areas, vegetation areas, and whatnot. We are on a parkland golf course, and that's not to say as a personal opinion, but I just find the aesthetics can be, a benefit to the staff, and it allows that presentation factor to go up a notch. And, I think it's really important for our staff and employees and future greenkeepers out there to hang their hat on, the type of work they do. And I think it's, it could be when they get the camera phones out and they're taking a photo and putting it as their profile picture, you just get a sense of, that's a really good thing as part of their employment. It's
one of those, I'm going to say delicate balances, because I do say that it's horses for courses with stripes and no stripes, and everyone has their own views on that, and whether that means you're a greenkeeper, an architect, a player and the like, commentator, whatever it might be, everyone's got a view. And it, like you said before, there's no right or wrong answer, and I agree with that sentiment 100%. But as greenkeepers, as professionals, it's our job to bring the best out of the presentation of the turf, and part of that is sometimes getting that stripe. Like you said, it really signifies and puts a stamp down to an extra level of presentation. And like I said before, sometimes some courses lend themselves better to that presentation and others don't. And I think it's just one of the things that we've always done as greenkeepers. I've done both. And I like to see them in different areas, and sometimes they work better than others. But, mate, interesting answer. I like it, and I'm intrigued about Keysborough, and this is what we're going to get into. I'm really pumped now. You got me excited.
Awesome.
Now, after a golf shot, number 4, we're only at number 4. After a golf shot, do you prefer people to replace their divot or put sand down?
Sand.
Makes it easier. We'll get into the grass types. Is that part of your grass types there?
So we've got Saturana Cooch and Common Cooch fairways.
So good.
Yeah, so it does help for recovery, and with golf course presentation, there's a lot of blowing that goes on. So sometimes you get a bit of moisture into the sand, it can settle and sit, but divots tend to fly off into the rough. So
that's true, because they dry out real quick, hey? Because you've essentially cut their food off.
You need a bit of luck. Bit of luck to get a little bit of sod established. So.
Very good. Now, number 5, mate, your favourite grass variety?
It has to be bent grass.
Nice.
But
nice.
At Keysborough we have a blend of the two on our greens, but in previous workplaces and just what I've worked with as well, I think the texture, the fineness of it, the workability, and what you get from a purity and ball roll, it's hard to go past.
Very good, mate. Number 6, your favourite bunker style. Is it Kingston Heath, which isn't far from you, obviously down there in Victoria? Is it Kingston Heath, Royal Adelaide, or the Australian Golf Club?
Look, it'd be out of Kingston Heath and Royal Adelaide. I think because we've got the Sandbelt style and I've grown up on the Sandbelt, it'll have to be Kingston Heath.
Okay, very good, mate. And the final one, this is the big one, the big daddy, number 7. If you could visit one golf course anywhere in the world tomorrow, which one would it be?
Royal County Down.
Oh, shit. What's it? That's a first one. Royal County Down, that's the only vote it's received so far in all the interviews that I've done for this. There you go. Is there a reason? Why is that one?
I was lucky enough to go to England and Scotland a few years ago.
Oh,
and,
nice.
I did my bucket list trip as a 25-year-old.
Oh, stop it. You can't do that.
Which has probably made it difficult for me to get the same satisfaction out of playing golf these days.
First world problems, mate.
Yeah, massive issues. But, yeah, being in that area and having that taste of links golf and then, what we know up in Ireland, that was one that I'd love to tick off one day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Royal County Down. Unreal. I'll be looking into that one again and refreshing my memory of some of the images about it. And I urge people, when you hear these answer to this question, I think it's good to go out there and do a little bit of research for yourself and just see why people are picking some of these courses. And that's the first vote for Royal County Down. There you go. Very good, mate. Well, that's Steve Super 7. Thank you, Nick. Good answers, good responses, and we will all compare as we continue to listen through, so it's always good to hear. Now, mate, let's get stuck into it. As I always say, let's start at the beginning. I want to hear about your greenkeeping career. I want to hear, can you start off by telling us sort of how and where you got your first start into greenkeeping? Was it a little bit of your background growing up? You mentioned the Sandbelt. I want to hear some of that. How did you get into greenkeeping and where did you begin?
Well, I loved playing golf as a junior. So I came from Bendigo originally.
Okay.
And, I took home one of the Golf Victoria magazines that was in the pro shop, and they had an AFL Sports Ready program. So I'm thinking I'm 17, going on to 18, got to look for a job. I'll try and go and work for the AFL. Quite naive of me at the time reading that, but being involved with sport, that was something I wanted to do. And made the phone call to AFL Sports Ready, and there were some options to work in turf management from golfing, bowling, and racetracks. And luckily, that there was a couple of calls. If I was interested to go to a bowling green and work on, and let's do it. Let's head to Melbourne and get into it. And then they said, we do have another option. We've got a golf course position come up, apprenticeship, traineeship at Metropolitan Golf Club. So, as you do a quick Google and go, oh, wow, this is pretty privileged place to play golf at, let alone work.
Yeah.
So, so then I got a phone call from the superintendent, Richard Forsyth, and came down for an interview.
Wow. So, and for those that aren't sure, listening, hearing these places, so Bendigo's northwest of Melbourne, if I'm correct, regional centre.
Yep, regional. Yep.
And there's some lovely golf courses out that way. Ballarat's nearby as well, and it's a good little golfing region, certainly in Victoria, that's away from the city. And then you come into the big smoke. Now, we've heard this from some of the interviews that I've done from others that have worked their way into greenkeeping. They come from regional areas down and they get into the Sandbelt. What was that like? Did you know much of the Sandbelt then in your first time getting to Metro, or was it just sort of, had you heard about it, you're playing golf and that sort of thing, and revered?
Yeah. Like there's a history that's obviously there, but as a junior growing up, your Royal Melbourne was Neangar Park Golf Club.
Right, okay.
That growing up, I thought that was the best golf club around. So, it's like, this is home for me. And
yep.
You start to see tournaments that are on TV, and you start to see, what else is out there. And I think heading down to the Sandbelt, and, it's pure luck that phone call or that position was available, because you don't normally go, all right, I'm going to leave school and go into greenkeeping, because at that time you didn't really know that was a trade.
Yep. Okay, that's an interesting That's an interesting point because, and sorry to jump in, mate, because I see now at the moment where a lot of the greenkeeping industry is short on staff, and we're looking at how we can attract, as an industry, new people to look at greenkeeping as a career. And I know that Simon Snedden, the superintendent at Gold Creek in Canberra, is doing a lot of work there in conjunction with the ASTMA with schools. But you just said it then that. And I was the same. Coming out of school, greenkeeping wasn't anything that was talked about. No one knew anything about it. I grew up next door to a golf course, so that's how I got in. But like you said then, so is that still something we're trying to get past?
I think we will have to continue, just growing that trade, that industry. But I think people, and through asthma as well, and even just tournaments,
Yep.
And sporting events, generally, there's obviously the need to manage those turf surfaces, and again, it's trying to go through the schooling system and promote the trade, and I think it's just going to be ongoing. There will be competition always,
sure.
From a pay and the issues that arise with the cost of living, but it's just trying to put out the lifestyle factor of being involved with sports turf management, and for me, I purely got in it by accident.
Wow,
which was a great accident.
A great accident. And again, that's something that I've heard a number of people that I've interviewed say that it wasn't their first choice or sometimes even their second choice. They just fell into it. And they absolutely love it and still do to this day, obviously. It's a great thing that you've fallen into greenkeeping, mate, and obviously you haven't looked back, and that's what this is all about. So you got into it through that time of leaving school and get your start at Metro, which you probably never thought you'd do. As you said, Neangar was your local Royal Melbourne. What was it like heading to the Big Smoke, mate? How did that go for you?
Yeah, I think going from an 18-year-old, I had to get my license 2 weeks before starting. So
yeah, right.
The test had to be, I had to get everything spot on and make my way down there. And it ended up that the family moved down as well. It was a bit of a fresh start for them as well. And they got into a business and went from there. So
good support network to have around you.
Yeah, and I think, you need to have that going from that age. Sometimes coming home after, 10-hour day to a home-cooked meal is still the things you need when you're 18 or 20-year-old.
100. I'm 40. I still love it when Mum cooks.
Yeah. No, I don't mind it as well. So that was a key, a help for me to get started. But yeah, I've said to many people, you go from, working with men, you're working on a trade, and, there's the training aspect of it, and you're learning on the job, but the expectations are still so high, and, you need to, it's either sink or swim.
Yeah.
So you grow up very quickly, and, I think the way, a lot of us that went through Metropolitan, it's definitely shaped us in our approach to a lot of things, and not just the trade, but the way we approach life. It's an amazing way to start your adulthood and working in that environment. It was fantastic. But yeah, there was some tough days out there and some steep learning curves.
Oh, mate, absolutely no doubt about it. And like you said there, Metro and Richard Forsyth, I'm not sure how long Richard was there as superintendent, but I've heard now a number of superintendents in the current day, and obviously Richard still is, and he's at Royal Melbourne, but a number of superintendents have gone through that gateway. It's like Metro's seems to be a really wonderful sort of groundbreaking experience for a lot of upcoming greenkeepers, because like I said, having heard people say that they went through Metro, they went underneath Richard, and now they've got a start and they've bounced through other courses and made their way into superintendents and some of the best golf clubs around the country, not just on the Sandbelt. So it's a really good breeding ground. Is that the right way of saying it?
Yeah, I think there was just a period in time there where I think from the early 2000s, the way Metropolitan produced turf surfaces, and we're lucky to host the tournament on the world stage, and from there, the level of, greenkeeping, it just it went to another place, and there was people there that obviously we know have gone on to bigger and better things, and I think it's just the culture, and it was the way we approached our trade and our love for the club or the course. And I was lucky enough to come in, at the back end of that, as a lot of those guys who, sort of moved on to their, some of them are their current positions, but that culture was still there. And when I started my apprenticeship, say 4 or 5 years after the tournament, it was a well-oiled machine, and, the expectations were certainly high, and it didn't matter if you're an apprentice or the assistant. So coming to that, there was a level of teamwork that you had to play your part. And, if you did your stint there and you succeeded, it really opened up opportunities down the track for chances at other courses and other clubs, and chances to travel and to better yourself. So, in that period, it was certainly a breeding ground for superintendents that are out there now.
Wonderful to hear, mate. Metro is somewhere that I probably didn't. Look, there's so many golf courses down there in Melbourne, just in general around that part of both sides of Port Phillip Bay now, that I wanted to go and see. And Metro is one that's got wonderful history. But I think it's somewhere that I really want. It's getting to the top of my list. And I've seen a couple, but it's one of those ones that it just keeps bubbling around. It's like you need to go and see it. You need to see why it is what it is. And those who have experienced it, whether it be working, playing, being part of the team, whatever, obviously know that. But it's just one of those ones. It's for me. It's working its way up the list very quickly. So
you have to check it out,
mate. Yes, indeed. Now, can I ask you? It was an apprenticeship you did there. You're learning. You did TAFE. Is that how it works in Victoria? How long were you there for? Did you finish your time and then move on? How did that pan out?
So apprenticeship, 3 years schooling at TAFE, and then the last year to pretty much get signed off from a practical component.
Yep.
So I did the 4 years there. So with my 4 years, it concluded. My apprenticeship fell on pretty much the day of the 2009 Women's Australian Open.
Oh, so, wow.
It was almost like this is, your apprenticeship is, building towards something that's going to be showcased on TV, and it's all building to this. So
that's
it was a great
huge
way to conclude that. Following the apprenticeship, allowed me to. I'd begun diploma studies the year prior to finishing, so I was well entrenched in that by the time my apprenticeship finished. But I just took a little bit of time out just to get away from the golf course environment, and it actually helped out being that Dad required some assistance in the family business.
Okay.
So I used that as an opportunity. It's almost like having one of those gap years.
Yep.
Go straight from school straight into a 4-year solid block of working. So it just gave me a little bit of time to reflect, but at the same time still attending the TAFE and continuing on with my studies. And then, Richard and I spoke again, and by this stage he was at Royal Melbourne, and I started at the back end of that year. And,
oh, wow.
Was pretty fortunate to do so, and we started again.
Mate, I want to. I didn't realise. Like I say, and people listening, I'm learning at the same speed that all you guys listening, the audience, are learning. I don't know any of this story from Nick, so I'm hearing all this for the first time, and I wasn't expecting you to say you started at Metro. Where do I go next? Oh, I'll just go to Royal. I mean that's a pretty awesome step. But I want to just quickly go back a little bit, because there's one part I wanted to dive into a little bit, because you mentioned there at the end of your time at Metro, it sort of culminated in the Women's Open. Was it the Aussie Women's Open that you said?
That's right.
So
yep.
I'm curious, from that perspective of a young person, you're working your way through, you're learning under one of the best in the country, you're at a top-end golf course in the country and indeed the world to a certain extent too. You get this tournament, one of the biggest tournaments we can host in Australia. It's one of our largest. What was it like completing your time? You've only been a greenkeeper for 4 or so years, and now you're prepping for a major tournament. How did that go for you as a younger person? Finish your time being part of that big preparation for one of the biggest events in the country. What did that feel like? What's it like to present a golf course for a tournament at that level? Because I've never done it, and a lot of the people listening haven't. Let us in a little bit, can you?
Yeah, well, the way it finished for me, that 4-year block, it was like getting signed off on everything I learned, but I was getting signed off by the audience from TV.
Yeah, good point.
And, the spectators, the players. But, yeah, it's interesting because the lead up to any tournament, and I was fortunate, and I'll go into this a bit later, but I ended up doing another tournament at Metro. So,
yeah, right.
But doing one as an apprentice, you're still learning. So you got that skill set there, but, you're still building towards that experience and that. So, but it really just polished off a great 4 years for me there.
Yeah, sure.
And gave me a lot of confidence, and probably that gave me the ability to just take a little step back, obviously help out in the family business, and then redirect my focus on what path I want to take next. But yeah, I was assigned certain tasks with, mowing patterns and contour cutting and things like that, where you just felt this sense of pride that you've been entrusted to carry this out. And, you've got the rest of the staff, you can't let them down. What you do will show up. What you do will matter. And I think we all played our part in that tournament. And it was actually the weekend prior was Black Saturday. So it was a fair run into that tournament. And that was probably the biggest test, was out there on that Saturday. We were only looking after turf, so it was nothing to the extent of what the communities went through and people, etc. But it was a testing time.
Absolutely. And we're talking about the Black Saturday fires, for anyone who's not sure, that ravaged through that part of the outskirts of Melbourne, devastating to so many communities. And as we see sometimes with these horrendous bushfires, it's loss of property, sadly, sometimes loss of life, obviously, in the extreme level. And the Black Saturday fires down there, was that the King Lake ones as well? I can't remember.
Yeah, that's right.
That was just horrific, absolutely horrific. So, like you said, the sort of the broader community, you're doing your thing, and you've got this thing, and we've seen it before in Sydney, where the Australian Opens had at the Australian Golf Club had bushfire smoke floating through on the TV screens through the footage, because the surrounding bush is burning, and it's just extreme. And you guys had that at that period then at Metro. You talked about the presentation there, and I got that a little bit from you when we were talking about stripes or no stripes. That's the polish of your profession, really, isn't it? That's the peak of what your powers to present a golf course, is you're putting it on TV.
Yeah, and probably by that stage, patterns and striping and those aesthetics that you have from a viewing point were starting to drop off, and we're going back to that natural look. But you still had to do that right. Yep. And, there was an element, they call it backtracking. So when you're mowing a line and you're coming back on the same run, if you don't get it right, it shows almost a misstrip. So you had to be as accurate as what you would be just, mowing burnt-in lines that have been done months out. So, there was another level, I guess, of just making everything look exactly the same, hole to hole, surface to surface, and having that blend in with the natural landscape. So it was a tough one to get right, but the lead-in was difficult, but we had some fine weather that week, and were able to showcase the course as best we could.
Absolutely. And also one other question I've got there is, did you find as an apprentice, again, the course was... How was it to see the course take that next step in presentation? Because your week in, week out is a certain level. Then you've got your championships for your club and major events locally within the club, I imagine, is another level. And then you go to television, the biggest tournament, or one of the biggest tournaments in the country. Was it that next level step again? I mean, I'm curious. From a preparation perspective, you're there day in, day out. How did it actually go to this whole nother level?
Yeah, it does, but it just happens, because you're building. The way I look at it is like you start to go from third to fourth gear, but you've been in fourth gear for a while now,
Okay.
and things are starting to really just polish up and blend in. And I think when you come to a course and you start to do the frequency of raking and cutting and, polish, and to the point where, you might be out there mowing greens and barely taking anything off, but it's all assisting in the performance of the turf and how, the uniformity of the surfaces and whatnot. And it just having that extra hours, extra staff, it just really builds and it ramps up, and you got to hold it there, and it's all about timing. And that's why, the likes of Richard, who have looked after these courses and hosted many tournaments on them, they get the timing right. They just know when to push, and it goes for the staff as well. Know when to hold them and when to push them, then to hold them at that level. And it's through the experience of the superintendents that get that team to that level. So it all just happens.
Unreal, mate. It's these are all the things that when we see it on television, we can start to really understand a little bit more just how much is involved. We know a lot's involved, but like you said, it's been working to that point for quite a while, a lot longer than we probably assumed just watching 4 days on television. Now, mate, let's go to that point that I jumped in before of is now you've had a chat with Richard Forsyth at Royal.
Yeah, so we look to pick a date and make a start. And being that Richard had probably been there in the role for 6 to 8 months, there's some changes with staff and allocation of staff to the two courses. And there was a spot for me which ended up being on the East course. I got back into it and started just after Christmas, so in January, and away we went again, which I was there for a year. Okay. And, I think, there's a lot of, superintendents at that time, future superintendents. So there was a fair lineup in terms of moving up the ranks. And, I was privileged to work on the course prior to the President's Cup, which was to be hosted the following year. So the level of works we were able to carry out and the experience I got from that, I felt like I'd worked there for 4 years.
Wow, that's awesome. Another prep for another major event. I mean, this is on the world stage now.
Yeah, so, the club's looking, their focus is on, they've had to resurface their greens in readiness for President's Cup and for the members. And, a job came up on the AGCSA website as it was there, and it was for Murray Downs Golf.
Oh wow! Okay,
as an assistant. So that came up, and look, I'd just gone back into the trade as newly qualified guy, but I didn't think I'd be even considered for that. But I just spoke to Richard just informally about it, and he said, yeah, go for it. And I think when someone says, yeah, here's an opportunity, you should go for it, that belief, it comes from nowhere. And sometimes that's what exactly you need to just go, yeah, I can do this. I would be right for this, but at least put yourself in that position to go through the process and be considered. So
absolutely. It gives you confidence. It gives you confidence, right? It backs up, or it certainly helps push that belief. It's sometimes you question, sometimes you're not sure, and when you get someone, a mentor like a guy like Richard Forsyth, the superintendent of Royal Melbourne, or the director of courses, I think it is now his title, that really does put a lot of backing to those thoughts about, am I ready? Well, shit, Richard's just said go for it. You are ready. And you go, yeah. Well, that's a big deal. But, okay, you pump yourself up a little bit and stick your shoulders back and head high and lay down the gauntlet to the assistance role at Murray Downs. Now, that's up on the Murray River, the border between New South Wales and Victoria. So you're looking to go regional again.
Yeah, so it helps that my wife, she was from Mildura, so it wasn't far.
On the Murray?
Well, not far, but 2.5 hour drive is a bit easier than, a 6.5 hour drive for her going from Melbourne to Mildura. So, sure. I think you go into that mindset I had for that interview was, I haven't got a lot of supervisory experience, but this would be a great chance to get some, and then to have a leading role within that golf club. It did help, that I did have some rural experience in terms of where we lived previously. So moving into a different environment and town wouldn't be too hard to manage there. So we ended up went for the interview and was successful in getting the job, and we ended up staying up there for just over 5 years in the end.
Wow. And Murray Downs, that's a great step. Obviously get the gig. Now you're in a leadership role in on a golf course, and Murray Downs is a pretty big track from what I hear.
Yeah, so at that stage, it was the number one course on the Murray.
There you go.
Look, it was 18 holes, but, the intensive management practices that went into it, we pretty much had the capabilities to roll out for, close to 36. So,
wow.
The expectations up there were high, and it was a great step in my career, not for just moving up the ranks and getting leadership experience, but really getting out of your comfort zone, moving to a totally different environment and managing turf surfaces. And, you're going up to an area where you're not blessed with resources. You're not, you haven't got, you can just order something and it'll be there in 2 hours, or you can go pick it up. You're quite isolated from things. And, that's the same for the staff. You don't have a town full of guys who have been to trade school and worked on other golf courses. There's only, 2 or 3 qualified people on the course, and the rest are made up of groundsmen and casual roles. So it was a great learning experience.
How... let's look into that a little deeper. And you talked about course and preparation and the I suppose the landscape that you have to work with being a quite a different environment. How is that? You only really know, without being rude, through your younger career, you only know the Sandbelt from a greenkeeping perspective. So then you go to where it's bloody hot. I was going to use a different word then, but I think I'll refrain from that. The summers are bloody hot. It can be quite harsh at times. You're on the mighty river. This is the largest river system in Australia. So you've got a water supply, no doubt, but it can get very cold in winter. So you've got a lot of extremes up there, which I know I've spoken to a couple of superintendents along the Murray, and we know it's a wonderful golf destination. The more I look into it, I find another golf course. I didn't realise there were so many. But there's a lot of expectations. It's a big holiday area for Victorians. There's not a lot of difference in the expectation for the presentation of the course, but you're managing different soil types, different environments, different climate. How different was it? Like you said, stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, that's right. I think because, in a way, Swan Hill is quite remote and isolated from, the other larger cities or towns across the Murray. So from Echuca through to Albury, you've got that cluster of golf complexes through there where, there's quite a few. So from a golfing trip perspective, they're very fortunate. We ended up being at Murray Downs, a major asset to the township for an attraction for, golfing groups to stay and play and to not just go through us and play a couple of rounds. It's almost to spend your holidays up there. So we felt like we had a duty to Swan Hill and the township and surrounding communities to, continue to put Swan Hill on the map. And so from that is, once you attract golfers, you're attracting, groups of golfers, and the expectations are coming with that as well. And you're trying to manage those surfaces. And you're right, like winter can be brutally cold, but then, you flip it on its head, and middle of summer, it's, we've cracked through the 45-degree mark, and you're thinking,
wow.
How's cool season greens going at the moment?
So that's exactly right. I've talked to other superintendents in the past that have been in regional areas, and some of them have been in hot environments as well. And I just, I struggle to think about how you maintain cool season grasses in that sort of heat.
Yeah, it's lucky they switch off. So we found if we did a deep watering cycle at the start of the week and, somewhat load them up, hydrate them, once the temperature sort of got that 28 to 30 degree mark, it was like us being in an air-conditioned office. It's like it's so hot outside, I'm not going out. So the plant just naturally shuts down. And it could be better, sometimes it's better for it to be 35 degrees than 25 degrees up there.
Yeah, right, okay.
Because the plant's still functioning. So, look, it was fine once it got hot. It was just you need to make sure that there was some adequate moisture in the profile for the plant to access. But, once the greens were looking after, we had to focus on ourselves as the ground staff out there because the other grass, which is cooch, that loves that environment. So away that went with any sniff of water, we were mowing around the clock.
Two very, very different turf surfaces to maintain in quite harsh conditions, really. I mean, and the expectation, because Victorian travelling golfers no doubt have a lot of experience with the best golf location in Australia, which is the Sandbelt. So there's an expectation through these holiday makers, golfing holiday travellers, of what to go out there and play golf on, isn't there?
Absolutely. I think especially when, you can get some wet conditions down in Melbourne, this time of year, but probably from June to September, once they start seeing on the Weather Channel that Swan Hill and Mildura are pushing, low 20s and it's still cold in Melbourne, straight away you get some fine conditions to play golf without wet weather hindering you. So naturally it's almost like a bit of that Queensland escape for the Melburnians, but from a golfing point of view, they can go to some dry land. So
yep.
And recently been up there a couple of weeks ago, they're 3 to 4 weeks ahead of us in Melbourne. So
wow, that's interesting.
We've got that to look forward to. But yeah, the expectations are from a golfing group and communities within clubs, where they're looking for. And look, it's well and good to attract them to come up that first time, but we need them to come up the year after the next and continue on playing that course. So we wanted to keep a consistent playable course and standard so we can continue to attract golfers.
Indeed, and there's challenges in that as well. So, mate, that's a learning curve. At 5 years, you said you were there for?
Yeah, 5 years, which was, it was a fantastic time. Made some lifelong friends out of it now and some that I'm actually going to play golf with in a couple of weeks. So we'll be reminiscing about the good old times.
Nice.
But, yeah, it was a fantastic part of my life. It allowed my wife and I to, do some travelling. The cost of living up in Swan Hill is a bit less than in your capital city. So we're able to do some things like that and get away. And, then I sort of had that moment at the end of it going, all right, what do I want to do long term? And, I was quite content doing what I was doing, but perhaps the fire in the belly wasn't there. And I wanted to make sure that I hadn't lost it. So I saw a couple of jobs come up for Melbourne, and I was keen to just come back to Melbourne and somewhat start fresh again and maybe go back down to the bottom and work my way up. But a job at Metropolitan Golf Club for the assistant role come up, and I thought, well, all right, let's go again if I'm successful.
Roll the dice. So tell us. Yeah. I'm on the edge of my seat. Were you successful?
Well, I was. It ended up being, a little bit of a process. It was a time where this is 2015. I made the decision whilst I was rubbing in sand on the 18th green at Murray Downs that I'll put my hat in the ring for it. So I told my wife that night, and we got the application ready. And I went down to Melbourne, had the interview, and about a week later, I hadn't heard much, but then my boss gave me a look saying, I've got a feeling you might be moving on. And I'm like, oh, all right, okay. And then, later that afternoon, I got the phone call to say I was successful. And
wow,
it was, a mix of emotions. It was, it was going to be definitely a large step up and a big change from what I was doing in my current position, especially with the works that Metropolitan would go down. they had, talks of tournaments, irrigation upgrades, course enhancement. It was going back to the big smoke and to the big job. So, it was an amazing feeling and achievement to, get that role under David Mason. And
that's awesome.
We made the trip back down to Melbourne.
That must have been a pretty special feeling, mate, from where you started your career. Now you're in the leadership team. That's and a lot on the horizon. So that's pretty special. Yeah,
I think it was real. I'm glad I did go away, and I came back with a lot more confidence to be able to take on a role at a Sandbelt club, because I felt like I've gone through a lot more scenarios, and the expectations were still there and the accountability was there. So I felt like I continue what I do as part of my craft. It's just we're going to another level now.
Yeah, and you've like you said, you've got that experience now. You got more experience under your belt, wider variety of experience under your belt. You've worked under different people, so you've got different. You're starting to pick up on different leadership styles and the way that you want to try and do things yourself. What worked at Murray Downs, what didn't work, how you can improve. There's a lot of learning. And I say that, whenever, all the steps through life, there's learning in different corners. But as a greenkeeper, the more you go and experience, and for me now, I go and talk to superintendents because I'm not working specifically in the industry, but I'm always learning. Conversation here now, I'm learning. This is the whole thing, right? This is what I love to do, and I think that when you appreciate that and you know that that's part of the process that you're always learning, you're going to pick things up and you're going to use them next week. You're going to use them next year, and I think that's so important to be aware of that because it's so useful. So useful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest advantages of going to different courses is, like you say, you're learning under different operators and you're getting mentored. And even my current day role, I'm actually referring to some practices at Murray Downs. Like we used to do this at Murray Downs on certain things. So it's great. And you go into, you try and mash up bits and pieces of each person that you've learnt under, and you adopt those methods and practices, and even your demeanour around your staff. You take as I said before, scenarios or circumstances where you go, I know this works in this position, I'll give it a crack again, and that's experience.
Absolutely, mate. So Assistant Superintendent at Metro, what a title to have. How long were you there for at Metropolitan, and are we working our way ever so much closer to Keysborough?
Yeah, we were probably 5.5 years off Keysborough. So in that time, finished up sort of June 2021, so last year. And it was an amazing time. We hosted the World Cup of Golf in 2018, done numerous construction, course enhancement works, full irrigation install. And I think, for me, I've sort of done an apprenticeship as an assistant by going to Murray Downs, did a 5-year stint there, and then came back to a Sandbelt club with, the 5 years of experience in terms of supervising and at times looking after the golf course in the absence of the superintendent, which is really, that takes you to a totally different place, especially the first time you look after the course.
Absolutely.
You're not so much doubting yourself, but you're like, I'm hoping people are backing me, and they've got their trust in me. So I think that was really important, having that experience prior to going to a large golf club that, in Dave's absence, I feel like I can just roll with it. And, you're not going to make the massive calls, but you are going to be the day-to-day dealings with staff and the turf requirements, contractors and the clubhouse golf club. You're still going to be accountable to it. But it was a bit of an easier transition than what it would have been making a step up earlier.
Yeah, sure. And one part of that, and I know a little bit of the challenges of this because I've spoken to a lot of superintendents about it. You didn't mention then, but I'm going to mention it, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. A key part of that, and you're in the leadership group, is you managed through COVID. Now, that was tough for so many people, and you Victorians did it tougher than everyone else in the country as far as I can tell. How was that for keeping morale up, rotating staff, you had to keep maintaining the golf course to a certain extent, because it's still growing whether people are playing on it less or playing on it at all. I mean, that was a very challenging period from what I gather for you guys and girls down there in Victoria. That would have been an interesting time and certainly would have probably got you a lot more leadership experience under your belt, no doubt.
Yeah, look, I think I'll still to this day, I think we're very fortunate as, turf management, greenkeepers to have our jobs through that period, which is, it was very important that golf courses continue to be maintained, especially when you couldn't really put a date on when things were to resume.
Yeah.
So, we saw the advantages. Well, not we were just counting our blessings that we're able to keep providing for our families, and the club was in a financial position to continue with major works. So
yeah, right.
That gave us a feel that the requirement of the staff will always be there. So that gave us a lot more confidence in what we were doing. So, yeah, there was obviously the changes. I think the hardest part is, especially when you're working with a great group, is the lack of interaction you could have, even though you're working somewhat alongside each other. But you kind of you rock up for your shift, you do your work, and you go home, and there's no reflection time. There's no chances to draw on, how we've got through the week or the last month, and sort of that planning side because of the social distancing and being mindful of working in smaller teams and different start times. So it made some things quite difficult, but yeah, the experiences that you gained through that period, it did assist you in a different element of leadership, and there's a lot more empathy in the way you went about things.
Sure.
In targeting, how staff were feeling or how they were going and what impact that the pandemic had on them. Because at the end of the day, you want to maintain that balance there where we getting somewhere with our practices, and we're meeting deadlines with tasks and work and whatnot, but there's people's livelihoods at risk, and they have partners who are out of work, or even just the virus itself. The chance of getting that. So we're all mindful of each other, and trying to assist in what we can do. So there was a different change of tact to the way we approach things,
and probably more than ever. And I don't think I'm putting words in anyone's mouth here, but I'm assuming or prejudicing the experience. But I think everyone would have been coming to work with a whole lot of different things going on at home, more than normal, because of how the restrictions and how the virus, if anyone got it through that time, and the concern of getting it, there was a lot, like you said, partners didn't have jobs anymore. Everyone's got a lot of challenges going on at home, yet they're still able to work. The club's able to keep them employed and keep them maintaining the golf course and being part of the team. But there's a lot in their heads. Everyone's individually thinking about so much, trying to come to work, to go to work at the same time.
Yeah. Like you still had to perform. Because we're in a position where, we're lucky to have jobs, and if we're not living up to the expectations and carrying out the work the way we should do, then, we've got to be mindful of that.
Like you said, empathy
right.
is what you said before.
And I think it's an important something to focus on in any leadership role as well. For me, I found it as a bit of an escape. The environment that we were working in, you had the whole golf course to yourself. So I'm tend to be a glass half full type of person. So I quickly went, all right, this is the challenges that we've all got, but how lucky am I? To be out here and, dealing with a golf course. I was just pleased not to see as much golf traffic out there, and we're able to kick some goals with some surface changes and implement, some practices in there where it's quite difficult to do around golf. So once we got some construction work underway and finished, and let those areas just grow in without a deadline for play resumption, I saw a lot of benefits for the golf course in that time. And mentally for me, it was, the challenges of just staying up, being, that person that, you try and drive a bit of, it's the culture, but it's also the energy as well.
Yeah,
And I
for
felt
sure.
like the expectation is if I'm struggling, how are these guys going to be? So,
And yeah, keeping that morale up, keeping everyone, somewhat focused and still with that energetic drive to be coming to work and it be a good place to come to, rather than, you're trying not to add to the stresses of home. You want people to try and be a little bit more energetic about being at work in a difficult, very difficult time.
yeah, absolutely. And to this day, I hope guys, when they're getting ready for work on the Sunday night, they're not anxious about it. I think that's something to be, that's great. I'm going to catch up with my mates tomorrow and we're going to try and make our workplace better. So, yeah, through that period, it was tough. And for Victorians and Melburnians, I think, the added inability to travel, especially like I've got parents that are in regional areas, and we went months without seeing them, and those times, and there's milestones you miss, and for us, funerals that are limited, and it was tough for everyone, and I think we were fortunate that we still had our bills paid, and we had a great environment to work in during that time.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So, assistant superintendent, spent another, what'd you say, 5 years or so? Is that right?
Yeah. So pretty much ticked off 10 years as an assistant.
And then how do we make the leap?
So yeah, again, it's the turf industry. Once a job comes up, it tends to be sent to you via text. I reckon that'd be the way it travels. So. But it's a bit different when your boss sends it to you. So
I don't know if that means it's time for you to move on, or it's time.
Retrace my steps here and go back over the last few days and see if we're still travelling all right. But no, it was surely an opportunity, and through that process, I was supported the whole way. And the job at Keysborough had come up. We're talking May last year, and during that time, through COVID, you're comfortable, but you got the security of the position that you're in at Metropolitan as an assistant. There's things on the horizon, work that we're going to carry out, but probably for the last 18 months, I was having these moments where I felt like I don't want to find myself continuing to put this energy and continue to try and hold at the standard as an assistant when I feel I could give so much more if given the opportunity as a superintendent.
Awesome. So how did that play out? You've been told that there's a job up. You got the support of everyone around you in applying for that, and you're applying with competition. It's not an open gig, I imagine. So what was it like putting that application in and rolling the dice and fingers crossed behind your back saying, well, I hope I come up trumps? Yeah,
well, it was the first superintendent's job I've gone for. And Dave, who'd been the superintendent at Metro for best part of 6 years, been at Riversdale prior to that, and Warrnambool. He was a great confidant and person to lean on because he's gone through the process a few times, and we focused on thoroughness. From the start, that was to make sure that the application and engaging with the general manager and try and learn as much about the golf course as we can and find out as much as what's happening both present and future. And from there, we and I speak we because you need the support of your superintendent to take that next step. And as much as you support the superintendent's going to support the assistant for whatever move they take down the track. So it was a group move for us, and engaged with the general manager for a tour and chat, and then I went to go home and study the golf course, refer to my pictures, and try and get a real feel for how the process would go, and what I see are the challenges and the areas that may require improvement, and to make sure that I go in there with some answers if I'm asked.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So your preparation is as good as you could possibly be. And we know now that you've got a 100% strike rate on going for a job as superintendent and landing the gig. What was it like getting that yes? What did that feel like?
Oh, it was, it was amazing. You felt like you had the past 14, 15 years just flashed before your eyes, And what I thought of was, how I started out and how you go when you're a first year apprentice, and everything's foreign to you, from all the machines in the shed to the golf course itself, and then how you, steadily, get to work, and you start to understand why you do certain things and how you go about it, and then the conversations you have along the way and the help you get, and you just go, wow, it's absolute mind blowing the support you get when you're going for this job and you get the job, and just how supportive everyone is. And you definitely need to have a moment to yourself. I think I pulled off to the side of the road because I found out, whilst I was driving, and I was near a pub, so I thought, well, what better way to pull over and celebrate by myself for a couple of minutes? So
that's great. That's fantastic.
So it was an amazing time.
That's fantastic, mate. Very, very well done. It's what a great path to get to Keysborough. I mean, that was really interesting, and I found it quite engaging, all the different steps that you've taken. And there's steps that, talking out loud from your perspective, and we're all listening, and I'm the only one talking to you, I suppose, but I think about the steps that you've taken, and I wonder, they really add up so well to get into Keysborough. Like, if you took one of those steps out, it might have sent you in another direction. And not saying that other, you might have landed somewhere else as a superintendent. Not saying that would have been worse off than where you are, but just hearing the steps that you've made in your career and the people that you've worked under, the mentors you've had along the way, the teams that you've worked in, the support you've had, and the opportunities that you've had and been given. I mean, that's just, how does that sound saying it out loud, but I've got to ask you.
Oh, look, I'm very fortunate to start off where I had, and being supported by the mentors throughout, and we all go through our tough days with our chosen work, and but the benefits from where we are and where we work outweigh them. But on paper it stacks up pretty well. I never sort of wanted to use that as I've been here, I've been there. I wanted to, somewhat win the job based on who they were interviewing.
Sure.
And I think that was the pleasing thing as well, because you end up going to another golf course, and Keysborough being an example of that, is where it's all different. The 10 years I had at Metro are, they're memories now. I don't use that to help me.
Yep.
So I'm starting fresh here, and we're a year into it, and it's quite different.
Yeah, you start again. Absolutely, you start again. But I'm going to say it if you want. I think that your career path to get to Keysborough has been fantastic, mate. And I think all that experience that you've gained and worked through, and like I said before, the people you've worked with and they've supported you along the way, is sensational. I mean, hearing that from you, it gives people... the other thing is that I know I've spoken to a number of people on social media that are looking to get into the industry, looking to land a gig, whether it be in Queensland or be in Victoria, change of career path, whatever it might be, and hearing these stories... And this is a sense for any industry, I'm sure, but in particular to greenkeeping, this is what I love to draw out from these conversations, is that everyone's had a path, and to hear the paths to where people have gotten to in their careers to date is fantastic, and it shows everyone listening that you can walk these paths yourself. You can get to these points if that's what you want to do. You can get there. You can enter an industry that we all think is fantastic. That's why we talk about it so much. And you can enjoy the challenges, and they are challenges along the way, lots of different types. You get to experience different parts of the country and the world if you want to. And and gain all this experience, knowledge, and friends, like you said earlier, from Murray Downs and from other places that you work. You've got a strong group of friends now that you keep in touch with, you go and play golf with, that you hang out with from time to time. I love hearing this. These are people's lives, and I really enjoy hearing what greenkeeping has brought to your life in particular, Nick, and other people that have interviewed. It's fantastic, mate. I'm going to tell you how good it is. I love it.
Yeah, no, I love the industry. I love the people I work with, and especially turf conferences. But yeah, even last weekend, I'm having a hit with a couple of mates that we've spent many years and going to trade school and talking turf, and you have some serious conversations on the golf course because we've got spring coming up, so we've got our preventative applications coming up, but then we're back to talking about the game and other things. So it's a great industry to be a part of, and it's great to be involved in sport. That's one thing I love about it. And being in the trade, and I'm massive advocate for it, because I feel like if you do move away from the trade for a variety of reasons, for your pursuit of something else or for a break, I really feel with the way the demand is for, groundsmen, greenkeepers, tradesmen, it's something really easy to get back into. So I feel like if you've got a good grounding and good core of skills, you can come back to when you need to revisit the golf course environment, and away you go again.
Absolutely. And I've heard, and again, and you did mention before you took that like a gap year to help out with the family business. Lots of people that I've interviewed have said that they've had breaks or turns or stepped away, stepped sideways, if you like, for a period and come back. And it sort of reinvigorates yourself. And anything's as good. Change is as good as anything. Sometimes you need that break. But a lot of people I've heard, and our industry, I say, quite lends itself to being able to do that. And you come back, you start afresh again, you reinvigorate it again, and you can just pick it back up and keep moving on. It's fantastic. Now, mate, that is awesome. Like I said before, your career. Thank you very much for opening up about that, because there is a lot of personal details in there and the places that you've gone through and with your wife and family and all those sorts of things. So I appreciate you being so open, mate, with it. And let's now turn that page and talk about where you're working as superintendent and the team you've got there. Let's talk about Keysborough. Let's talk about this golf club, this golf course on Melbourne Sandbelt. It's part of the group, but it's like you said before, it's probably not that top tier, whatever you wanted people to describe them as. It's a course that some people may not have heard of. So can you tell us a little bit about some, specifics about the golf course? It's an 18-hole golf course. There's a little bit of history with Keysborough because it came to its place of where it is now in around the early 1950s. But prior to that, there's a bit of history behind this, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's a lot of logoed Keysborough hats and shirts that have got 1899 written on it.
That's old.
That's old. That's it's a few years. So yeah, there's a great history for the club dating back to 1899. So and its origins, we're actually Albert Park Golf Club. So
that's obviously in the city next to Albert Park Lake. Around that region. And this is the early time when golf was starting off, around in the very early days in Melbourne, and some of the earliest clubs that were started in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. I think 10 years later you had, Royal Melbourne, which was Melbourne Golf Club, joint Royal Melbourne and Metropolitan around that time as well. So that was the early awakening of the Sandbelt, and, Dr. Alistair McKenzie came out in the early 20s and started doing his work, laying out the land and making tweaks and adjustments to existing courses. So, things were steadily moving on through that golden era for Australian golf. The present side, as you mentioned, we've just ticked over 70 years here at Keysborough, which is, southeast, but, it's directly east from Royal Melbourne, and you probably, as the crow flies around, that sort of 10 to 15 k's away. It's not far away at all.
Wow! So you're right in the thick of the Sandbelt.
Yeah, we're not far away. We're within the Sandbelt. Our styles are, a little bit different, but there's a cluster of clubs through here. We've got Southern Golf Club, which is next door, and then couple of k's away, you've got Woodlands Golf Club as well. So we're starting to head back towards, the Victorias, Royal Melbournes, and then you go up a little bit north. So we're in that. You throw a blanket over us.
Nice, very nice. And I like Wood. I remember getting a bit of a drive around at Woodlands. I was really surprised by Woodlands, and now that I'm talking to you at Keysborough, I'm disappointed I haven't had a chance to. I didn't even know. I've heard of it. I didn't know it was so close to all the others. So this is a learning curve again for myself as much as everyone else listening. So, mate, 18 holes. Lots of deep history in the club itself from the early days of golf starting in Australia and obviously in Melbourne. So there's history, there's pedigree in that. The golf course on its present land for 70 odd years. What type of golf course? I think you mentioned earlier it's a bit more of a parkland style feeling golf course, but do we have a bunker feel of some of the sand? Is the soil similar to the Sandbelty style feel that we'll see on TV that we might have played before?
Yeah, look, you definitely walk in and you feel like you're at a Sandbelt golf course. If you're to look at the green complexes and the bunkering, shaping, design and whatnot, it's a course that was designed by Sam Berryman, who actually designed Huntingdale and Southern.
There you go.
So he's got that theme, and there's some holes out there, and there's a couple of my favourites, which really the green complexes resemble a lot of Huntingdale's work.
Okay.
And the work that was pre-done to changes that have happened in the last sort of 20 years. But, you walk in and once you start playing, that sort of first 4 holes, I think when you really get to the 4th hole and you're standing on the tee, you start to feel that's where the Sandbelt style is starting to really kick in and, really resembles something that's in line with its neighbours.
Nice. Now, tell us a bit about so I'm just going to ask first, is this a private golf course that you need to be a guest of, or you might be able to visit as an interstate or an international player?
Yeah, so it's one of those ones, members golf course with guests, inquiries made, there's opportunities to play. It's a 18 hole. It's roughly set on 180 acres, so it's a large golf course.
Okay, nice.
A lot of water through it.
Interesting.
Some in clay, some not, but it is a floodplain. There's a water channel that goes through the golf course, so stormwater that runs through and bypasses through the other side. So, and we have some control of that water, which is fantastic. So
always helpful.
It can be prone to flooding. So if we do get massive downpours, anything north of us that's impacted, that water has to make its way through our low-lying holes, such as 11 and 13, for the ones that are aware of the golf club. So that can create some challenges and headaches as well. But generally, for most part of the year, it's in playable condition through the wet season as well, the winter time. And, it's definitely got those vibes of Sandbelt golf.
Very good. Very good to hear, mate. Like I said, I'm interested to learn more. And in part of doing so, we talk about a Sandbelt feel of golf because it has a particular feel as you're a player. You get out there and you play on those turf surfaces. So, mate, tell us and enlighten us a little bit what you've got there that we would be playing on if we're to visit Keysborough. What grass types do we have? And I imagine, and I can only say that I'm imagining before you answer that question, is that we've got the ground game involved. It's part of that style of golf as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, what epitomises Sandbelt golf, and especially current Sandbelt golf, is trying to have firm greens, but you need to have release points around the green so you can get that ball to find where it needs to go. So you need to use all parts of the green complex and approach. But, yeah, we're lucky we've got the Santa Ana Cooch with probably made up of about 3 to 4 holes worth of common Cooch fairways, which in the height of summer, once you're watering, mowing and the use of some nutrition and plant growth regulators, it tends to bind in and match up pretty well. So that leads us to some good surfaces there for greens and the collars. The collars are a mix of Cooch, bent, Poa, and a little bit of ryegrass. So a bit of a bit of we've got options depending on what time of year it is. So the cooch will fill the void when we need it in summer, which can aid us in having a full surface there. And then we're on predominantly power greens, power annual greens.
Okay, that's winter grass. It's a common name.
Winter grass. Yep. With certain greens holding a high percentage of bent grass through them, and some others that got a lot less.
So it's a bit of a mix, a power bent mix, if you like, and it goes. You're still able. That's what I had at Katoomba. We had the same sort of thing. Some greens had more bent grass, some greens had a lot more power. That mix I find to be quite common to a lot of golf courses that have a cool season surface. It's not always straight bent. You do get that. How do you find managing that through the summer period? Because the power does, I found, struggle a little bit with the heat, obviously. You're able to still get that nice, firm, bouncy surface and deliver that down that region there at Keysborough? Yeah,
look, I treat all the greens the same, even though, there might be varying levels of percentages of grass types in there. But, yeah, look, I haven't worked on power greens. We've predominantly been trying to spray out power in my past working experience. So, the way I looked at it was I was going to do everything different to how I was trying to get rid of it at other places.
Sure.
And that's culturally as well. That's not just the use of herbicides, but it's the idea of trying to keep more moisture consistency and a number that's going to be helpful to both, through that period, and playing a bit more defensive to those surfaces in the height of summer, because, as you know, power is the first one to put its hand up and say it's not going too well. So we're mindful of that. We try and, from this point to, November, December, that's when we'll try and do everything we can to set it up for those real harsh couple of months that we'll get, post New Year.
Yep.
This is where we start to build up, our nutrients reserves and complementing that with some, good products through spring, get them moving, get the aeration happening, get the sand out, and away we go. And then we feel like we've got a good mix to take into that 8 to 12 week period where, we just have to be mindful of how that root system's going and whatnot. But generally, they've been a pleasure to work on. And some of the power greens who are 90% without the seed head there, they're a fantastic surface to play off.
Oh, you can. And I've said this before, and I don't think a lot of people realise we often talk down power, and I'll whinge and carry on about it because I looked after power green sometimes. We had challenges in the Blue Mountains, which was often cool, and for a much longer season, we wouldn't get up into the mid-20s until probably late November in the Blue Mountains. So we would get fusarium in November, because that's just low light up in the sky, a kilometre in the sky. We'd often have, low cloud, which equaled low lights, lots of misty days with an easterly breeze, and it has its challenges. And then you get the heat, and it has its challenges. But you can, in the States, for example, in the US, there's a lot of high-profile golf courses that have power greens, and they deliver some of the most incredible golf putting surfaces on television, and it's not often talked about. So you're still able to deliver great quality putting surfaces with a mix of power bent, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm finding now is, I think we're not far away from our first 20-degree day, but you can really see the bent grass just becoming quite leggy at the moment.
Yep.
And that'll need some, tightening up, which we'll do. But, you can definitely see the two different grass types. But as we start getting to regular works on the greens through our normal maintenance practices, the combination of the two, I think when it gets hot and when it gets tough, we know the bent grass will, move into the voids that are created by, some, power that's struggling. But on the flip side to that, at least we're not having to worry about, tracking power onto our greens and doing anything with, trying to limit the effect of it. We're just trying to use and complement the both, and all we target is try and get the best possible surfaces we can.
Absolutely, mate. That's great to hear, and that's what you do best as a superintendent. That's the goal, mate. I'm curious, Keysborough, your busy golf course, busy club?
Yeah, busy. That's probably been an adjustment for me is traffic, which you got traffic coming through. They obviously are enjoying their golf course, which is great. And the way the golf scene has been post-COVID, it's been great for the industry. So we take that on. But yeah, very busy. Some of the tee times are quite a bit earlier than what I've had in the past. So we just have to make some changes there as well. But yeah, like I say, if you've seen those full time sheets day after day, there's an element that they're enjoying what they're playing on.
Well, absolutely, and we know that members of clubs and a private members golf club, if you've got full time sheets, that the members are obviously loving the club, they love the culture, they love being part of it, and in turn, they're members of the club because they love the golf course. So it's, again, I find all those things add up to a testament of what Keysborough is, what each golf club is. The reason I ask if it's busy and if you've got full timesheets, that sort of stuff, because it shows how passionate the members are about playing golf there. They love their golf course. It's something that they want to be out there enjoying. That's why you do it. So it's great to hear, mate. So it is a popular golf course and a popular members club. So people are out there enjoying Keysborough as much as any of the other courses. Like I said, I'm just trying to talk about this to people that might have experienced a lot of the other courses in the Sandbelt, and they go, I enjoy, if I get an opportunity to go to a Huntingdale or to go to a Kingston Heath, it might be once every few years if I get an invite from a member, but they might not have seen Keysborough, and it's just me shining a light to say, look, we're talking about it in detail here. You might want to see if you know someone that can get you a start there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the membership's very proud of their golf club, and we see that flow on effect from our volunteer groups that we have on Mondays and Thursdays. The input they have and what they want to do for their own club, how to make it better, it's fantastic, and it helps complement our work, and we complement their work. And yeah, it's a real it's a well-established club, obviously through its history, but it's a great community within a golf club here. And
let's talk about that, because I'm glad you mentioned the volunteer group that help out in different parts of maintenance and in different parts of the club. That's a real passion by members, isn't it? I mean, they're giving up time to go and do things. And there's some, look, I'm just going to say this because I've had experience with it. There's some members of clubs, and I had them at mine, so I don't care what I say and who I offend. I had members at my club that would just say, you're the greenkeepers that are paid to go out there and do that job, so get out there and do it. I'm not going to lift a finger because that's what I'm paying to be a member for, right? So as harsh as that is to hear, I hope most clubs don't have that, but I had it, and it was tough to hear. But then you get, like you said, you've got a group, or you get volunteers that are quite the opposite. They go, we love our club. How can we help? And you've got a group of volunteers there, you just said. So, that's helpful. That's great. They're passionate. They want to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think our conversations with the gentleman who leads our volunteering group, we look at each other and he'll go, anything in particular? I said, just do your thing. And we just roll with it. And where it really benefits us is when we've had adverse weather conditions or changes, and it's all hands on deck. And it's those jobs that, especially as we kick into that spring period where we've got more fairway mowers flying around and grass clippings going everywhere. They're just doing the behind the scenes work, the little 1%ers that we somewhat can't get to all the time. And it really just makes my life a lot easier. Again, what they see out there, they can fix on the fly, so to speak.
Yep.
And it's small things. It could be just divoting, and it's also being aware of our maintenance practices. So, a great example is, they'll see what mowing route we're going, and they'll go and divot tees behind the mowers.
Yeah, nice.
And you just go, that's fantastic.
Absolutely. And
so, yeah, we're very privileged here to have that.
And a sense of pride of their golf course, a sense of, like you talked about as greenkeepers, as professionals and presenting a course, you have a sense of pride. Volunteers, I've found, have an absolutely huge sense of pride. Doesn't matter whether they help out for an hour a week or 4 hours or whatever, an hour a month. They walk off and they are so proud of the golf course that they've been able to help present and be part of, and they go out there and enjoy their golf. I just think that that's really good to hear, that you've got a group of volunteers there that help out. And I'm not saying that anyone who doesn't stick their hand up to volunteer is not a helpful member. That's not what I'm saying at all. But those that do, they're just able to they've got another level of passion that they're able to help out with. They've got the time to do it, and they're passionate about it. And I think it's wonderful that they can help and be part of the team as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's great because they feel like they can contribute, and they also own part of the work they're doing as well, and that's important. So they can be reflective on how they've seen an area start and finish, and from day-to-day general maintenance, when they do come in, they come in with a game plan as well, which is, again, it makes my life easier, because you can't have all the staff in the world. And what this volunteer group does, it's those little things that allows us to go back to focusing on, the things that we're getting paid to do. So that's really important.
And let me ask you this, mate. How big's your team? I want to know, how many staff do you have?
Yeah, so we're floating around that sort of 8 to 9, but it's a mix of full-timers, casuals. So through this period it works pretty well, and those hours may go up with an addition of 1 or 2, but generally we're around that 9 mark, probably midsummer.
Right. Okay. So you got 8 or 9, which is a good crew. It's a good crew. If you had 15 tomorrow, would you be able to find work for 15? I'm sure you could find work for 15 blokes. I'm sure you could do it easy.
I'd probably have to spend a bit more time in the office writing it up.
But
I could.
But you could get the presentation level, because you've talked about what it takes to present for a tournament. I mean, if you had, but you're never going to get 15 guys, right? So those volunteers, and what I'm trying to get at is those volunteers are extremely helpful, because the club's not going to turn around and say, we'll give you another 3 blokes tomorrow or next year. But to have those volunteers to help with those 1%ers is huge. And like I said, they feel, we had them at Katoomba. It's a massive help, and they feel part of the team. They're able to give passionately to the club that they want to do, they want to give more to. I think anyone who's able to give, they're a special group of people, volunteers on a golf course, and I think they should be applauded for it and rewarded to no end. And just a thank you is what I mean by rewarded by the club itself, and I'm sure that they get that at Keysborough and other clubs where they are. I just think it's so helpful and fantastic. So, mate, I'm glad to hear that, and I'm giving the volunteers at Keysborough a clap from my end for helping out.
One from me as well.
Now, mate, we'll move on a little bit from there. I want to hear you know the golf course backwards, you know it inside out, upside down. In your sleep, you could walk it, not a problem. What's a favourite location you've got on the golf course that, as a player, some of the members that might be listening, some of the visitors that might one day be there, that they get to and they go, I've never looked at the golf course from this point before, or never noticed those things, mate? What's something that you go, this is the spot. This is the spot that really, it's just a wonderful part of Keysborough to be right now, this time of the day or whatever. What's one somewhere on the golf course?
Look, it could probably be in the morning. There's an area, so we've got a cluster of tees and greens. So it'd be on the back of the 8th green, and you've got pretty much a 360 visual of the golf club. So, from that area, I can look up, and see proximity, probably 7 holes from that area. And, majority of it's the front 9. And then, on select days, that's where, especially, and that's probably goes away from my sunrise comment, because a couple of those later evenings when I've been out in the golf course, been in that area, it's just magic. And it tends to be probably my most photographed area too. So
nice.
I tend to have pictures of the same tee and green on my camera roll. But it's that sort of linking up the tee coming from the last green, and you've got the bunkering around, and we've got a couple of areas of water as well. So that's my favourite spot.
Very good. That's somewhere that I hope people take note of next time they're out there enjoying their round of the golf course. And if you're out there at the right time, you'll see what Nick sees. This is the thing. Nick works in it every day. Loves it, he and the team, and it's always good to hear these little favourite locations that they might not be aware of. Mate, tell me a little bit, and this is probably a little bit more of a personal question about your thoughts on the golf course, because, like I said, I was blown away that Keysborough is part of the Sandbelt region, that environment, that local area. What do you think makes it a little bit more unique than probably some of the other named courses that we know of, even the Spring Valleys of the world? What makes Keysborough a little bit different, do you think?
I think, in terms of the way the golf course looks and presents, it's probably going back to that parkland, not your traditional sandbelt, we've got a lot of grass cover in our roughs and, mature trees and, a lot of our areas are golfer friendly. So we're not somewhat, the speed of play is not going to be really a massive issue here at Keysborough. So we probably don't have the vegetation or native landscapes that the other neighbouring courses do. But I think what makes it unique is the club itself is successful in the way they go about providing for their members, and that goes from providing the course for the members, and it's not that external advertising that they're looking to attract. They're really happy with how their setup is in terms of as referring to the timesheets, and it's rewarding and giving value for the members. They're the ones who are paying, and any changes to the golf courses or to the club are only to benefit them. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a different setup in terms of the aesthetics, and that's where striping, presentation, the mowing and, general care of the golf course can make it best for the members and a little bit different to our neighbours.
Yeah, wow, that's very good, mate. It's good to hear that. Obviously, for those that have experienced the golf course, that sounds like they obviously want to then be part of it, be a member, join. If they know someone there, or if they've played the course before, and they want to be part of it, join, be part of the membership, be part of what Keysborough itself offers specifically that no one else can. So that's great to hear, mate. Good to hear.
It is.
One of the final questions I've got is, I'm curious to know, what are you looking for this growing season ahead, if I can say that? What are you looking to sort of improve, present a little bit better in your mind, with the team bringing something a little bit more out of the golf course? What are you looking forward to this season ahead?
Yeah, look, when we took over August last year, there was only 2 staff that were remaining. So it was a little bit of I call a cycle. So over time, the teams tend to, there's a bit of change at the top and a few others make their way as well. So really the first year was just trying to learn the course, learn the staff. It's almost like starting off with a footy team. We need to find out who can play in their positions and who's going to be best here, and go from there. So now that we've rolled over a year and we're a lot smarter and we've got more knowledge of problem areas and areas we want to focus on, and and areas that we want to simplify from a maintenance perspective. So really it's just a year we're looking forward to presenting the golf course better instead of searching for what we need to find. We've got a good balance of the key requirements that we want to take with us, and really it's just improving. It's improving everything, and I think that's what we'll focus on. And really, bunker works will be that focus, and that can come from balls plugging to entry points. Everything's just about polishing what's there and making those improvements. But I think we'll have to address some drainage issues. So now's not the time, but we can see where our areas are. And once it dries up, we'll be able to jump in the ground and see what we've got to deal with. And that'll be a focus of us going forward towards the end of sort of this year. And then, before we know it, once the sun comes out and a couple of spring afternoon showers and the grass jumps, we'll be back onto mowing. But an emphasis on presentation for sure.
But it's obviously Keysborough's got great bones from what you're looking at and what you've seen, and you've had that time to get your head and the team around it, form a cohesive group that can work together. And this I suppose this is the platform, right? You're sitting there going, now we're ready to launch. We're going to bring out the best in this place and really show our members how much more we can make this course better to play on.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. Like, we sit back in August and, we're out there, assessing the turf and its requirements and the playability of the golf course. And once we know the golf course is playable for the day, after, storm events and, just general weather conditions, then it's about, all right, how we're going to focus on the points that need it the most. And once we get going, and like I say, we're a year wiser, it's a year into it's almost the game style that we're going with. And we've got, a great group here that are learning together, but they're rapidly improving, which is pleasing, and we're looking forward to having a good run at it this year.
Unreal. Well, Nick, on that high point of what's ahead for Keysborough and the membership there and what they can look forward to and get excited by for the playing season ahead, the summer season ahead, the growing season ahead, mate, I think I'm going to say thank you for all of your time and your honesty and your openness in your career. I appreciate you opening up about all that. Like I said before, there's a lot in there for people to open about, and I appreciate your openness and spending the time to tell us more and share a little bit more about what Keysborough is, what it has to offer those that are members and those few people that will get a chance to visit it and play there as well. Mate, it sounds like a wonderful environment. My hat off to you, one, for landing the gig there, and two, for ready to put the foot down and show off what Keysborough really is and what it can do more again than it already has done in years gone by. And what a great club to be part of for yourself, mate, as first time posting as a superintendent down there in Melbourne. So, mate, congratulations on superintendent's role that you've got, and also I look forward to seeing some of those photos on your on your social media, mate, that you can put forward, and we'll see how good Keysborough is. So thank you, mate. It's been wonderful to chat.
Thanks, Steve. Pleasure to be part of the podcast. Thank you.
Sensational. Thanks, Nick. I hope you enjoyed that one, ladies and gentlemen. What a great conversation that was with Nick Launer, Superintendent of Keysborough Golf Club. One you probably haven't heard of down there on Melbourne Sandbelt, and if you do get the opportunity to get out there and be a guest or get a chance to go and visit Keysborough and have a game, or you're a new member that looks to join, or you're a member that's been there and loves it and you're passionate about the golf club there, look, it sounds like a wonderful facility, one that I don't know of, but I am keen. I'm keen to learn more about, and I'll be doing a little bit more research into that one. So I thank Nick Launer, Superintendent of Keysborough Golf Club, for being part of Colin Campbell Chemicals Keeper of the Greens, and a great segment had there. I hope you guys learnt a little bit more about it, took something away from it as always, and obviously what the greenkeeping career can offer you. As you heard, Nick's wonderful career path was fantastic. Hats off to him. He's done very, very well to get to Superintendent of Keysborough, and what great experience and mentors he's had along the way. Now, don't forget, guys, and one thing I haven't mentioned is that I do, in my show notes, put links to different golf clubs and different bits and pieces that you might be interested in. So just check out the show notes there. There's got some links there you can just click on to go to different places that we've talked about and mentioned in the podcast. That's always a good one to look at. Please like, share, subscribe. I do always say that. I appreciate the comments, reviews. Written reviews are wonderful too, so thank you if you can take the time out to do that. I really appreciate it. And don't forget that Colin Campbell Chemicals, the sponsor of the podcast, the Keeper of the Greens, are wonderful sponsors there. They can help you out with any of your turf management and turf protection questions that you've got. They'll wonderful people there. Nadeem at Colin Campbell Chemicals is a man to get in touch with, and they can help look after you. So don't forget that. Check out their website at campbellchemicals.com.au, and really happy and very privileged to have them involved with and being able to sponsor and help bring to you Keeper of the Green segment of the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast. Now, guys, as I always say, you hit them clean, we'll keep them green. I'll catch up with you very soon, and thank you for leaving a review. I really appreciate it.